Range script loaded, you can now press Escape and select either Choose Slot or Choose Coalition Red, and then pick your aircraft. You have chosen to start the mission in the air. Please increase the throttle lever and use trim to level the aircraft. Keep the current heading, as the weapon's range is straight ahead. Maintain 600 to 700 kilometers per hour and 3,000 meters altitude, until you enter the range. The MiG-21 BIS simulated on DCS can employ two types of rockets, the heavier S-24 or the lighter S-5. On this training mission we will learn how to use the S-5, on a prior mission we saw how to use the S-24. The S-5 is a Soviet rocket based on the German R-4M of World War II vintage. Its development started on 1946, but it entered in service almost a decade later on April 1955. While the real S-5 is available on several subtypes with different warheads, on DCS we only have the S-5M, which is fitted with a high explosive fragmentation warhead. The S-5 is a 55mm unguided rocket which has a steel body containing a solid fuel rocket, and a high explosive warhead with a mechanical impact fuse. At the rear of the rocket is an elongated exhaust nozzle, with 8 attached forward folding fins. The fins fold around the rocket when it is stowed in its launch tube. They spring back as soon as the rocket leaves the launch tube. In flight, the very slightly angled fins exert a stabilizing spin to the rocket. The solid rocket motor burns for just 1.1 seconds, during which time it covers about 300 meters. The S-5 is carried in rocket pods, and on DCS you can choose between the UB-16UM of 1968, with 16 rockets, and the UB-32M of the 1970s, with 32 rockets. Their specifications are listed below. Press space bar to continue. For this training mission, we will use a weapons range near Wadi Abu Rish Air Base, which employs assets created by the 476th Virtual Fighter Group, plus a weapons range script developed by the user Sirabab, which will allow you to gauge your shooting accuracy. We have placed 2 smoke markers, green and blue, at the entrance of the rocket target attack area, to help you in locating the target. Perform attack passes over the target from west to east, so that the mission logic can keep track of them. You can use salvos of 4, 8, or 16 rockets per pod, whichever you prefer. You can access the attack statistics by calling up the F10 option of the communications menu. Press space bar to begin the training. To power up the weapons system, first turn on the power switches for pylons 1, 2, and 3, 4. This will energize the pylons and enable the operation of their locks, to allow the release of the weapons. The infrared and semi-active radar heat switch is not needed for rockets. The missile and rockets launch switch should be turned on just before your rocket attack, as it powers up the weapons launch subsystem. As we are about to perform our attack, turn it on now. Use the weapon selector knob to select the rocket salvo you want to use, 4, 8, or 16 rockets per pod. Note that when firing the rockets, you need to hold the weapon release button pressed until the salvo sequence is finished, otherwise you interrupt the firing sequence, which will continue from where it stopped the next time you press the button. Currently, the simulator is more accurate and no longer launches rockets from all 4 pods simultaneously. Instead, rockets will be launched first from both inboard pods, in compliance with the salvo parameter. The 4 position will launch 8 rockets, 4 from each pod pair, the 8 position will launch 16, and the 16 position will launch 32. Once all rockets from the inboard pods have been launched, an automatic switchover to the outboard pods will take place. You have selected a 16 rocket salvo. The main element that the MiG-21 pilot uses to deliver its weapons is the ASPP-FD optical sight. As a first step, make sure it has electric power. Its sight power switch should be up. The sight offers 2 different aiming aids, a pipper, which is mostly used for cannon use against non-maneuvering targets, and a fixed net, which is used for bombing and rocket attacks. You can have both active at the same time. Turn them on with the highlighted switches. Adjust their relative brightness as needed, using the highlighted knobs. For this mission, leave the pipper bright and the net dim. Press spacebar once the sight brightness has been adjusted. The sight can be used in two main modes, air-to-air or air-to-ground. For this mission, select air-to-ground mode by setting the sight master mode switch to its G and D down position. The sight operation modes are selected using its left side controls. For rocket employment, select gun launch mode. For rockets, select L and C, down. Shooting or bombing, for rockets employment, select S. Automatic or manual mode. On manual, the pilot must manually set the angular depression knob of the sight, using the marks 0, gun, S5M and S24 for rockets, etc. While on automatic, the sight sets the depression based on which weapon is currently selected. For this mission, select Auto. MSL or Gyro. MSL renders the pipper cage to the center line of the sight, while Gyro has the pipper moving as the ASP attempts to predict the target position and is used only for air-to-air weapons against non-maneuvering targets. For air-to-ground, select MSL, up. Rotate the target size knob to set the target size. The pipper diameter will adjust accordingly. For this mission, our target circle measures 65 meters. Press spacebar to continue. The MiG-21 radar can be used as a ranging sensor to help the sight to provide an accurate shooting cue, measuring the distance from the aircraft to the target. The radar requires a 3 to 5 minutes warm-up period, and it has cooling restrictions that limit its use to 35 to 40 minutes while in standby mode, and only 20 to 25 minutes when fully active, so keep it at off for as long as possible. As we are near our weapon's range sight, set it to standby now, middle position, and to on, up, once we begin our practice attack. Enable the ranging mode by selecting locked beam on the highlighted switch. When used for ranging, no other radar option needs to be set. To launch underwing weapons, you press and hold the weapon release button on the flight stick. To prevent accidental launches, the button is fitted with a safety cover. The DCS developer has implemented a small cheat, where the safety cover is automatically raised when you actuate the weapon release bindings. This allows most users to just forget about this cover and simplifies their HOTAS bindings. However, the cover remains raised after you have pressed the weapon release. We have finished our examination of all the different weapon elements. Press spacebar to continue onto the practice section of the training. The weapon's range is in front of us. Two smoke markers, green and blue, mark the entrance for the rocket target attack path. Do not confuse the rocket target circle with the larger circle used for bombing training. The rocket target is enclosed within a square, on the north side of the range. As the actual rocket attack lasts just a few seconds, we will explain now the details on how to perform it, so pay careful attention. The S5M rockets have a maximum advertised range of 3 to 4 kilometers, but the MiG-21 sight only displays distances up to 2 kilometers, and for greater precision we will launch the rockets at around 1.2 to 1.6 kilometers. For greater precision, you will launch the rockets using a 30 degrees dive from an altitude of at least 3,000 meters. To better judge when to initiate the dive, do not fly directly towards the target circle. Instead, fly on a slightly offset heading to the left or right, so that our aircraft's nose does not hide the target. To avoid negative Gs, we will initiate the dive by rolling inverted towards the target. Start the dive when the target has reached the point where the canopy frame meets the cockpit border. Once you have the nose of the aircraft pointing down onto the target, roll back to an upward position and maneuver to place the target within the sight. Once you have the target within the sight, maneuver to align the fixed net axis with the target. The range scale shows the radar ranging distance to the point marked with a small X. Southwest, strive to place this point directly on the target. If the red brake light illuminates before the launch, interrupt the dive and make a brake to the right and up, to climb back and fly a circuit to repeat the attack later. Disregarding this warning light can lead you to impact the ground. Take care to not exceed a 5G load, or other external stores, like the fuel tank or other rockets, may detach from the aircraft. The Pipper will begin to move up once the range is below 2,000 meters. Keep maneuvering until you have the Pipper over the target. Once the distance is below 1,600 meters, press and hold the weapon release button to fire the first rocket salvo. Once you have fired the rockets, break the dive to the right and begin to climb back and circuit the range to make a second attack run. Avoid the common mistake of keeping on the dive to watch the rockets hit. Break away as soon as the rockets have been launched. On a real combat attack, you would release flares during the break, in case Defense Forces fires back at us, but on this practice it isn't needed. Press spacebar to exit the pause and begin the actual practice attack. Remember to take the radar out of standby and turn it on. Our airspeed should be 600 to 700 km per hour, as the attack dive will increase it, and the altitude above ground should be 3,000 meters minimum. Throttle to minimum, roll inverted for the attack dive. Once the target is in view, roll again to an upward attitude. The Pipper will came up once you are in range. Fire when at 12 to 1,600 meters, by pressing the stick's weapon release button. You still have rockets left. Turn right, climb and circuit the range, for another pass at the target. For another attack run, climb back to at least 3,000 meters. We are far enough, turn right to go back towards the target. You still have rockets left, turn right, climb and circuit the range, for another pass at the target. For another attack run, climb back to at least 3,000 meters. You have expended all your rockets, turn left, climb and head north. Deactivate the armament, for the rockets is very simple. Close the weapon release cover, by clicking on it or with the keys right control plus right shift plus the equals sign. 2. Set the radar to off, to preserve its refrigerant supply. Set the missile and rocket launch switch to off. This removes all power from the weapon's launch subsystem, but it doesn't affect the gun, since it has a separate power switch. Good, this completes the armament safe procedure. You can check your range results by calling up the communications menu, select F10, Other, then select F1, Range, and finally, click F3, My Bombing Results. You have completed the main subject of this training mission, select. Press spacebar if you want to fly back and land at our airbase, or press backspace to end the training now.